Hello, I'm Walter Coppage, and I'm an actor based in Kansas City, as well as Chicago. Well, when I was a kid, I think I always wanted to perform. I wasn't really sure how. And I was in high school, actually. I remember that there was a group that came in, and I think it was like Scenes from Shakespeare or something like that, and they did a morning assembly, and it just caught my eye and ear, and I just suddenly realized this is what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I went into college as a theater major, and that's where I started performing. But shortly thereafter, I would find some other avenues to perform in, and one of those was comedy. This was in the early 80s, so comedy was brand new, starting out in Westport at Stanford's and Sons. They had the comedy house that was going, and a friend approached me and said, hey, we'd done a couple shows together, and he said, hey, there's this new comedy club, and are you interested in getting together, maybe putting together a group, a troupe, and going and performing? I thought this would be a way to kill a summer, and I wound up doing it for about 10 years. Like I said, I worked with a guy, Paul Orwick, who's an actor here in town, and Paul and I, originally we were a trio with a third guy, and we basically took our training from theater, improv games, doing dialects, creating characters, and taking a lot of improvisational games that we learned about through Second City and the Groundlings, and taking those kinds of games and putting them on the stage. And then we started writing sketches. A lot of our I think most of our material was character-based. There was a couple of sketches. I remember the space shuttle was very new and hot at the time, and I was a temporary worker coming to pilot the space program, or pilot a space shuttle, and Paul was a very uptight astronaut. So we had those kinds of roles, characters that we did, and that was the beginnings of it. But as we started to do comedy and actually started working with some really good comics, we began to expand out and actually start to explore doing stand-up, legitimate stand-up. We would write monologues for ourselves, and those would be the pieces that would go in between our set pieces. One of the first professional comedians I remember seeing that come from out of town, who was living in Minneapolis at the time, was Louis Anderson. So we watched people like him and Alex Cole, and Sinbad was a brand new comic out of Wichita, Kansas, where he was, I think, in the Air Force Reserve, and started coming up. And so Sinbad and I got really tight, actually. It's been about the next 10 years in really close contact. And I learned a lot from him. He was the kind of guy that seemed like he did a lot of improvisation. It seemed like everything was off the cuff on stage, and some of it was, but so much of it was written, and it was just the way he presented things. And what I learned from him was how to make things natural, and to seem like it was just evolving, even though it was all scripted out and really refined, that it was just happening in the moment. And he was the king of that. I remember being in Colorado Springs with him, and we'd had the day off, and we went to a mall, and this is the 80s, and so I got this gray flannel fedora. That's how I spent my hour, 2 hours at the mall. Sinbad came back with 20 new minutes. I couldn't believe it. We went on stage that night, we did our thing, Sinbad came up. I went to the mall today and did this killer 20 minutes about being at the mall. Every bit of it was freaking true. Every bit was true. He talked about my damn hat. I mean, it was amazing. I got a hat. You got 20 minutes. I just played the storyteller in Christmas Carol, and I swear, it's all stand-up. I mean, it was, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the show. So it was, I drew a lot from when I did that, and how it's a little bit bigger than life. Well, it's certainly, as we were talking about, it's a challenging time to come back. COVID is no joke, and we as entity, the theater community here in Kansas City, I mean, it's been a struggle for the last couple of years, and so I'm excited about coming back, but I'm a little cautious. I think this is a time to be careful. I mean, I think we can do this. We can come back safely, and we can come back and we can perform and we can work together, but we've got to be careful, and we've got to be smart about it too. I don't think we can be let our desire and need and joy of coming back together and working together make us careless. So I think we just need to stay smart about how we do it, and I think we can. I'm excited that the Rep's going to be producing the Royale. That's next for me. It's a great show. I think there's four-hander? Four? Yeah, I think there's only it's a four-hander. It's a really cool piece with body percussion and sound and movement, and it's an important story. I think the story of Jack Johnson, this fictionalized story of Jack Johnson, is an important story at this time, in that we see what's the cost of being the first, the cost of being the one who breaks that barrier, not only for themselves but also for the race. What are the costs there? And as we are coming into a more enlightened society, shall we say, with the Me Too movement and with Black Lives Matter and with seeing the Trans Lives Matter, I think as we become more enlightened, looking back at stories like this to remind us of what these costs are and to remind us of those that are willing to pay it, the price. I think those are important lessons for us right now. So yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, it's very cool. I'm hopeful though that we will be supportive of each other during this time, whether we are ready to come back to theater or not. I know that some actors and those of us, some in our community, are a little reluctant to come back, and for good reason. And I think so. We need to have patience with each other right now. Those that are coming back and doing the work, we need to be patient, and we need to be supportive, and we need to help. And those who are not ready to come back, who feel that it's maybe we need to be patient, and we need to be supportive, and we need to put things into place to make them feel safe to come back, whatever those reasons are. If it's health, the financial situations, the workplace safety, the matters of representation or equality, we need to put those things in place so these people can come back and feel safe to work with us. So, it's just talking to my wife about this. There's three things I always say that I love to surprise people with, and something like one would be like, I worked with Louis Anderson, or I knew Sinbad before. The other is that I've seen a lot of posts recently where people are like, oh, I'm 30 and I'm not quite where I want to be in theater, and or I'm approaching this age, or I'm in my 20s and I've hit a crisis, or I thought I'd be further along the road, or I haven't broken. I like to tell people I didn't become an actor until I was 32. You're never too late, or you're never too early. So don't put numbers like at 35 I have to. Who the hell knows? I was just reading about what's his name, Brian Cox, who's in Succession, at 70 has finally hit it. So it comes to us when it comes. So don't worry about that. Don't put that pressure on yourself, I think. The other one that I love to tell people, and they're always surprised, is that we always think that certain things in our society, with Black Lives Matter, we were reminded of a lot of the things that happened during the Civil Rights Movement. And I just saw something about, Ruby Bridges the other day. And I love to tell people this because, we think about Ruby Bridges and, if that young girl had not stood up and all those years ago and the people that were screaming at it. Ruby Bridges is 2 years older than me. If I was 2 years older, I would have been walking to school with Ruby Bridges. So that's how close we are to that. So remember that. We've gone so far. Really, we have. We really have. So hang on to that. Remember that within this lifetime, that was happening. Yeah. So, yeah, buddy. Come on, future. It's looking good. It's looking good.